tastes delicious.
You're useless. Useless.
Useless.
Okay.
So it's Thursday, and we thought Wednesday, and it seems like everybody that was on Mondays, trying to avoid everybody else, now switched to Wednesdays. So it seems like, well,
I don't know. We're trying it tonight.
We're going to try it tonight here on Thursday and see how it works. So what's been going on lately?
Well, I can't remember the last time we did one of these. I went to 2 rabbit shows. One in Redmond, one in Grants Pass, and I am done till Astoria, which is in February. Had to cancel my plan to go to convention. The one other friend that could go, everybody else has backed out on us. And quite frankly, with the gas prices going up, and I don't know, I was just a little scared of going and getting stuck somewhere. So not going. And boy, yeah, I basically just trying to put the garden to bed, and that's really about it, right? I mean, it's just kind of that time of year. We've got some fencing stuff to do. Just kind of that lull, right? We're splitting firewood, and the garden didn't do real good. We're waiting on some broccoli and cauliflower to finish, which I think I can pick tomorrow. And not a lot to butcher right now, not a lot to can, just not a lot of anything.
Well, we had done a lot of that. So maybe we did 33 rabbits in 2 days. Nikki sold an additional 7. I think that we kind of explained that in the brief last one we did, which was like 3 minutes. I think what it ended up being was called The Art of Bartering. Yeah, so I mean, otherwise we're just, like she said, getting firewood going. We're about a week away from getting the garden put to bed, and that's because it is going to hit probably the low 20s in a few days, probably in like 5 days, 7 days, something like that. It's going to be in the low 20s.
Like 4.
Yeah, so 4 days.
Like 4 days.
And pretty much after that, I can tell you there's almost nothing we can do to keep everything outside going. We already pulled the hoop house greenhouse. We pulled basically every tomato in there and everything we could get out, because other than running like a propane heater, you were not going to keep it above freeze at night. Even with blankets and other things, it's almost just like, there's just not enough in here to really keep doing.
Where's your phone?
It's in the window in the kitchen.
Great. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I disconnected because it's messing with that.
All right.
Keep talking.
Okay. So yeah, I've got firewood coming. That's been a whole adventure this year where we decided we'll just go ahead and buy rounds. And Nikki put up a ad on Craigslist. Had a lot of people respond. We were about a week out from the woods being open, so people could legally cut. We chose somebody, and it's just been a disaster ever since, trying to get him to make good on his promises and his commitments. So we'll kind of get into that, but it's been a fiasco trying to get wood. But we do have some here, and I'm splitting with my axe as much as I can, and Nikki's stacking it. So we're almost at a half of one bin. We're trying to get 2 complete bins plus whatever is the overflow. So we are maybe 20% done, if that, maybe 16%, somewhere in there. It's going slow just because we have so much other stuff to do. Still have the barns to clean. Nikki's still working on cleaning up the rabbits, trying to get everything maintained before winter. I did an oil change on my truck. I need to work on Nikki's. I need to do the quad, the tractor, and the bombshell was dropped today that Nikki's parents are probably selling their place. We were 50-50 on as if they're going to get something this time of year, but it sounds like they had 1 or 2 showings, and, well, we are going to be inheriting temporarily a lot of stuff, it sounds like. So that means they have 1, 2, 3, I think 4 or 5 vehicles coming here. They have a tractor. Basically, if you took somebody else's life, put it in some boxes and brought it over, that's what we're going to be on. It's going to be interesting finding places to put stuff. So who knows? We'll see how it goes. But it's going to be quite interesting to see what we can get done in the next roughly 2 months before they potentially sell their house and decide what they're going to do for the winter, whether that's stay here or hello, how are you? Have you met Liza? She's apparently wanting to be in the show today. So yeah, we might have
Hi, sweetheart.
thank you. We might have plenty of stuff here, and they might go to Arizona or just do some traveling over winter because they really don't have a home yet.
True. True.
Getting it to work?
No, nothing's working.
Yeah, this is kind of a dead spot for my phone.
No, I mean I'm even on the MiFi. I can't.
Oh.
Nothing's working. So,
Oh,
we shall see.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything's working or not working.
well, I see that one person has joined, so hello, joiner. I think that says 1.
No, it says 9. We have
Oh.
9 people on.
Well, hello, 9 people. I
And-
can't read that text, even with my horrible eyes. I cannot read that small text.
Yeah, well, luckily I can. So yeah, questions will be difficult because nothing else will work. If this is going through, then that's the best we can hope for.
Yeah.
I can kind of sort of read stuff, but okay, I have no idea who said that, but can hear you loud and clear. So okay.
Roll with it.
Yeah, we usually use the laptop too, so I can read questions and comments, and nothing else will work. So we'll just keep rolling with this. At least this is
We'll go with
something
what we
better than
got.
nothing.
One thing's better than no things.
Yeah, so not a whole lot going on. We closed the hip camp for the season after Labor Day. Yeah, like Hayden said, lots of cleanup, lots of that kind of stuff. And so, like the title says, I wanted to talk a little bit about homestead ethics a little bit.
Oh, that's a tough
And
one.
this kind of goes to a whole bunch of different stuff, so I'm going to kind of skip around. But like Hayden had the video out here a couple weeks ago about bartering. And if you're going to do some bartering, make sure that you can fulfill your end of the agreement. So, as Hayden mentioned, we bought some firewood, and the local fella that we bought the wood from, I'm not overly pleased with the wood, but that's neither here nor there. The big thing is he came back and wanted to trade some wood for some goats. So the agreement was 3 truckloads of wood. He got 2 in, needed the goats because he had traded for another goat elsewhere. And so we went ahead and let him take it. No problem. He'll be here Wednesday. Wednesday came, Wednesday went. Kanan texted him before we went to town because we didn't want to miss him. And he was like, oh no, I'll be there after 5. And haven't heard from him since. So either I've got to track this guy down now to try and get my last bit of wood, or I have to track him down to go get one of my goats back. So
yeah.
And you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't
right?
have to,
It's
but
an agreement between 2 people.
the quality, the biggest contention with this whole thing, it's not a lot of wood. It's the fact that everything up to this point has been a complete fiasco. So if you've seen any of our videos, I've shown the little micro stove, the wood stove we have. It can take about a 14-inch piece of wood, a donut, and we split it down. Anything longer than that becomes hard to deal with. You can get it in there, yes, you can get in some 16, 17, but it gets really, really difficult to get stuff in there. So
especially if the fire is already going.
Yeah, exactly. So we specifically said, hey, we need something in 14-inch. If it's roughly that, we can deal with it. Less than 16, though, it's got to be less than 16. Less than 16. There is no way I can handle anything beyond that. Guy said, no problem. So he's brought us anywhere from 8 to 18.
Yeah.
He's brought us donuts that I would struggle to split with like 1,000 PSI splitter.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so big. They're so massive. Out of like the
Brought
6...
us a 3-foot log.
Yeah, he brought us a 3-foot log. Out of the 6 trips he's made so far, he was actually on time once. He's no-showed 3 times now, I think.
Yeah.
With not a real good reason.
And I'm not real convinced that the gentleman knows what a cord is.
Yeah.
And I finally figured out what this is he knows how big a cord is. The problem that he has is because he can't seem to cut limbs off, so all of his limbs sticking off the wood is like 4 to 6 inches.
He's hacking him with a machete.
Yeah.
Not cutting him with a chainsaw. He's hacking him with a machete.
But because the great big limbs are sticking out everywhere, when he stacks it into a cord, there's this airspace everywhere. So
Yeah.
you're not really getting the volume of wood that you should get.
Right.
So I guess for an ethics type thing, I mean, be honest about what you're selling, and that's clearly not what he's doing. When he dropped the third load off, he said, or the fourth load, anyway, the end of the third cord, he said, well, tell all your friends about me. And I thought, you haven't done anything
right
worth telling my friends about.
Yeah.
Other than to run fast and get somebody else.
It's been a struggle. I mean, really, we should have 4 cords now. By the time he gives us this last little bit, we should at least have 3.5.
I think
at
it's going to be more like 3. So
I hope it's 3. But yeah, we might have to actually go cut firewood still after paying hundreds of dollars for wood and 2 goats. We still
well,
might
at least
actually,
I'm not feeding the
yeah,
goats.
I know,
So there's
but
that.
yeah, the silver lining there. But yeah, we still
Yeah.
might have to go cut firewood.
We'll see.
Some point.
We'll
you
see.
know.
So yeah, I mean, part of being ethical in what you're doing is being honest, right? And knowing what you have, being on time, being respectful of other people. And that's not really what's happened here.
No, it's
So the other thing that has come up this week, and this is the second or third time that this has come up recently, is if for the people who have watched the meat rabbit math video, you know, I talk about, I think, breeding 4 or 5 times in a year there. The number of people who have argued with me and said, no, as soon as a doe kindles, breed her in 2 weeks. Will she? Some lines will, some lines won't. The big thing, I mean, when you talk to a lot of homesteaders, the biggest reason we all raise our meat is mostly to know what is going into it, but also to know how those animals have been treated, right? I mean, I think that's a big part of it. When you have animals on the homestead, they are your partners. Whether you eat those partners down the road or not, that's the partnership, right? You feed them, they feed you. That's how it works. But I have to call into question the ethics of somebody who is willing to rebreed a doe basically into the ground. If she is perpetually pregnant or nursing her entire life, what kind of life are you actually giving her? I breed 3 and 4 times a year, and there are some people who think that's far too much. But they can handle that. There's plenty of downtime. They get downtime, and they get, you know, trips out to the yard by themselves and whatnot. But I think that we're starting to, and I kind of get this, that feed prices are really high, and on top of that, food prices are getting really high. But I think we have to remember that just because you can doesn't mean you should. I guess I'll quote a little Jurassic Park there. Just because they could doesn't mean that they should. They didn't stop to think if they should. So while, I mean, we're not talking about a tomato here. We're talking about a living, breathing creature. And I know people who breed their goats twice a year too. And I have to call into question whether or not that is ethical from an animal welfare standpoint. I could sell more rabbits if I made more rabbits, but that's not necessarily what's best for my does.
Yeah.
Same thing on the meat end. I could eat more rabbit if I bred more rabbit, but I'm not prepared to breed them into the ground and cause them physical harm, which is what we're talking about when you start breeding them back to back to back like that. So yeah, that's been on my mind a little bit this week.
Yeah.
I had it commented again yesterday is what kind of sparked it off. The last thing is, and this isn't so much homesteading, is it for some of the folks that are YouTubing these days. I'm sure some people saw my comment yesterday about getting a snippet of one of my videos hijacked into a Len and the Bunny video, and I can't believe that wench gets away with it because 90% of the video is hijacked video clips from other people. The thing is that none of those clips are long enough to violate YouTube's usage rules. So there is nothing I can do about the fact that we as meat breeders have a snippet of one of our videos now in an anti-meat propaganda video about how there is no good breeders. And I don't recommend anybody watch it because every time you click on it, you're putting money into that crazy woman's pocket. But what I will say about this is the breeders that she talked to were people she found off of Craigslist. They did not have good conditions for the rabbits. And I'm sure if she'd have gone to an actual breeder that had good conditions, it wouldn't have made it in the video anyway, because that's how these guys operate. And the former breeder that she talked to was maybe 19 or 20. And I wouldn't have called what she did a breeder. Her mom got her 2 lion heads. They had 2 pets. They made rabbits. They sold babies. There was no thought process, no idea what they were doing, no integrity, no plan. They admitted to lying to people. That's not a breed. That's why we did a whole series on what makes a good rabbit breeder, because that ain't it. None of that was actually being a good breeder. And the fact that they then asked this girl, well, do you think there are good breeders? And she said, oh, no, absolutely not. Just because you're a liar and a thief doesn't mean everybody else is. So I've just been a little fired up about the whole ethics thing. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of stuff right now being misrepresented all the way around in multiple industries. We have bought hay in the last couple years that were 100-pound bales that turned out to be 80s.
Yeah.
Is that ethical?
Well,
should you be selling?
The thing you always have to wonder, right, is if people can tell you dead in the face that an 80-pound bale is 100, you have to wonder, is like, do you not even understand what you're doing?
Yeah, part of it I always wonder if it's just ignorance.
We get that talking to people where they're stone cold can tell you all about their breeding program, and you ask them questions, they're like, no, why would that matter? And it's like, because it's, and I get that. Nikki sold some rabbits a couple weeks ago from somebody that drove 6 hours to get them.
And drove further than that. That was Michael.
I wasn't talking about Michael.
Oh.
I was talking about Chuck.
Chuck. Okay.
So the gentleman's name was Chuck. And he drove 6 hours to buy 2 rabbits, 2 Americans from Nikki. And I wasn't in and I was driving, so I just kind of sat up there and played on my phone while she was helping him out. And the guy was he was experienced and he knew exactly what he's doing. He'd been doing it for a year. But the more she asked, really had no idea. It was more like any results he had was just pure luck that the rabbits kind of got what they were supposed to do.
Well, and he was a very nice man.
Yeah.
But when I said, yeah, they'll hit 5 pounds at 8 to 10 weeks, he smirked at me and he said, that's a myth. That's a myth. I've now been raising rabbits for a year.
Yeah.
They don't get that big. I think everybody says that, but nobody gets those results. Well, in talking to him, I finally figured out that his New Zealand's were 8-pound rabbits.
Yeah. So
you're right. You're never going to get a 5-pound rabbit in 8 to 10 weeks out of an 8-pound rabbit. You're talking about trying to hit 60% of their final weight right from the get-go.
You do not need to be up on the table.
Thank you. I don't know. Not trying to be real ranty. I'm sure it's coming across that way, but
it's hard to
be sure what.
Would you quit, please? Golly, I'm trying to talk here. It's hard to be ethical if you don't know what you're doing. And the dangerous part is there's so many people that don't. All right, so many people don't know what they're doing and don't know that they don't know what they're doing. And they go off as experts. And that's the really dangerous part. We've said that before of how, we made a whole video on how dangerous the internet is because there's a whole lot of experts out there that have just flat got lucky because they bought good products or they haven't died yet, and
that's true.
And didn't somebody say that recently that Well, I haven't died yet, so it must be okay.
That was in one of my canning groups.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's, you know,
I see some questionable canning practices,
right.
and well, it's never killed me. I don't know. I guess it's a dangerous way to live your life.
Yeah. I mean that's but yeah, it's scary the people that think they are good, quality, honest, ethical people that don't know what they're doing, but they don't even understand that they don't know what they're doing. And they're just I guess
Well,
continually feeding the monster.
and that was another thing. That was the one thing I did take away from the Len and the Bunny. One, I took away that because I've never watched any of her videos. I did take away the fact that she has absolutely zero actual rabbit knowledge. She got a rabbit from a rescue and now thinks he's an expert to the tune of millions of views on these videos, and everything she shares is wrong. Like right down to diet and sizes and breeds, and it's all bubkiss. So that's kind of a
Well, I think it's like so many that they watch other bad information, whether it's YouTube or they read blogs or anything else.
yeah.
You get some bad information and you basically take that or you borrow content from other creators and you continually spill that out, and we have a huge enough following. It's like, man, you're misleading so many people because they think you're smarter than them and they won't actually go out and try to find research, and a lot of times they'll
Right.
go find information that contradicts. Maybe they'll find the correct information but it contradicts the person that they really believe in, and they will just
Go with the
say
bad stuff.
they'll go with the bad stuff. Like, whoa, I don't care that you've been doing it 12 years. My buddy over here that has a rescue rabbit, she's smart. She's had it for 12 minutes.
But what I took away from it more
Yeah.
than anything was the reinforcement of one, as we've mentioned before, don't buy rabbits off of Craigslist. There's plenty of people, like I occasionally will sell rabbits off of Craigslist, don't get me wrong. But I watched some of that stuff and I thought every breeder she contacted off of Craigslist, those rabbits were overcrowded, they were dirty, some of them had malocclusion. They couldn't tell her dates, like how old they were. And then the one former breeder girl that flat out said, "Oh yeah, we would lie. We would tell people whatever we needed to tell them to get them to buy rabbits." And I go, "Okay. So, I've said this before, be very wary about Craigslist."
But it's like buying a used car on the bad side of the railroad tracks without a Carfax. And you ask the salesman, like, do you know the history of this? Oh yeah, I do. Has it ever been wrecked? Oh no.
Yeah.
And then you look up and realize it's been rolled down a cliff. And they're like,
Sort of,
it's
yeah.
still good. And it's got, 6 inches of Bondo on it. And
Well,
I mean, it's
I have bought many things off of Craigslist over the years,
I
and
have
some
too.
have turned out really good, and some have turned out monumentally horrible.
Yes,
My firewood guy being a prime example of that this year.
I know. But I think when you bring in the life of something,
Yeah.
an animal, whether it's a rescue or whatever it is, you really got to step it up though. You really got to put out the extra effort to have the knowledge to do right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, life is a learning experience for sure, but um I feel like an awful lot of people aren't even trying anymore. They're just like, well, I read this one thing and that sounds like what I'm doing, so I'll just go with that.
Yeah.
So, kind of irritating week from the, as I'm saying, ethics point of view. Like I said, I don't recommend watching the Len and the Bunny stuff. It's all propaganda pieces, every last bit of it. I scrolled through and just looked at her titles. Several other people contacted me and said, "Oh yeah, that's her common MO is to steal video clips from other people." And it's such a stupid clip. Like in the video at the moment, she's talking about poor housing conditions. And it is literally the video where we have a cage propped on top of a worn out table to show how to get a big rabbit out of a cage. The rabbit doesn't live in that. I even mentioned in the video that it's a horrible cage, but it was the only cage I had loose that I could just sit out and do what I needed to do with it, where you could see. Because I had tried to film in the barns with the nicer, cleaner, bigger cages, and I couldn't get enough lighting and enough visual in there to show what I was trying to show. That is the clip she chooses to use about poor housing conditions, and I was like,
Well, it's just taken completely out of context and spun to
of course it is. That's how these vegan ARA activists work.
yeah.
And I am all about animal welfare. That's what makes me so mad. No, my rabbits do not all have an individual 420 square foot apartment. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Have their own bedroom and their own bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't every rabbit need their own bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette to
I think
prepare
so.
their carrot smoothies?
I guess so.
I'm going to try and read some of this. If they're not 5 pounds between 8 to 10 weeks, they are cold. A problem a lot of people have is they will keep all the kits. Okay. I didn't read all of that because I don't have my other thing. Yeah, I mean, if you're going forward with a breeding program, absolutely. If they can't hit that mark, they're never going to make the 10 to 12 pound grow out. There are breeds that are exceptions to that, right? So, like the Harlequins, we don't expect them to hit 5 pounds at 8 to 10 weeks. That's not the breed. They're not big enough for that. But satins, and I think this has really caused a huge detriment to the breed. Satins have that problem. So even the purebred satins that I've been breeding here do not hit it that fast. That last comment was for the 420 square feet per rabbit. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, the satins will not hit 5 pounds at 8 to 10 weeks unless they are crossed. So you now have a lot of satin breeders bringing in New Zealand and California and other things trying to make them hit 5 pounds or to mature faster. But I don't know what they've bred them with to slow them down. I'm playing with mine to on a whole different project. But yeah, you can't really get that 5 pounds by 8 to 10 weeks if you're using 8-pound adults. I mean, it just doesn't work. Greetings from Forever Green Farm in Wisconsin. Well, thanks for joining us. If I look funny leaning in, the computer that we usually use for comments not working. So I'm trying to read it off the screen as we go. But yeah, there's just been a lot of that kind of stuff. Like this guy in California was sold these rabbits, and they said, "Oh yeah, no problem. They'll hit 5 pounds at 8 to 10 weeks," and the rabbits matured at 8 pounds. I mean, an 8-pound doe can't put out a kit that will reach that size that fast. Even if you breed her to something much larger, a lot of times it just doesn't work that way. So, just kind of been an aggravating week with a lot of that kind of stuff. But on the plus side, it is breeding season. I am getting ready to breed pretty much everybody. So Harlequins, Americans, Triantas, we should have a whole bunch of bunnies, and I do mean bunnies, here in another month. And that's, I mention this a lot in my class, because this is another thing that I've mentioned on some videos. We as meat breeders really need to watch that B word. And I noticed that when I watched that Lennon the Bunny video, and every rabbit is referred to as a bunny. A bunny, a bunny, bunny. If it's 5 years old, it's a bunny. If it's a baby, it's a bunny. And that's a pet word. And I think we breeders screw ourselves up really badly when we use it. I tried to never use the word bunny for anything over about 4 weeks. So they go from kits, which are up to the time they get out of the nest box around 2 weeks. Then, very briefly, we'll refer to them as bunnies from about 2 to 4 weeks. Then they roll over to juniors. And then from there, 6 months, if they're a big rabbit, they go to intermediate or seniors. So I'm pretty careful not to use the B word. It just sets a bad precedent. And if you haven't been paying much attention, we are being bombarded by the vegans every minute of every day. They are trying to ruin us in our industry. You know, they're big time after the cattle people right now. They're going after a lot of the chicken houses. They've been going after the swine industry and pork. But the big thing is, there are a whole lot of people who want to see rabbits become absolutely nothing but pets. And I have no problem if you want to keep a special rabbit as a pet. We get some every now and then that live out their lives here and get a little something special. But um, yeah, we're just being bombarded by this day in and day out. Impossible nuggets and impossible burgers. And I'll tell you what's impossible: to be a meat producer right now and not be bombarded by veganism. And I'm not anti anybody, but it's just getting so militant anymore. I mean, I'm pretty careful with our address and where we are, and
Michael
trying.
just jumped in.
Oh, I see that. Hi, Michael. Hope the rabbits are doing well. But yeah, we're getting bombarded by animal rights type things all the time, and it's not just us, of course. It's everybody that I know that breeds rabbits. Up in Central Oregon, once again, they have somebody going in and stealing rabbits out of people's backyards because it's all cruel and we must free the rabbits. So they're freeing them and they're getting hit by trucks and picked off by neighborhood cats and dogs and coyotes and whatever else. So, but yeah, we're being bombarded with that day in, day out. So I know I've missed a whole bunch of comments. What you got? Because it looks like you got it working again.
I barely. Yeah, Ray said that if they're not 5 pounds between 8 and 10 weeks, they are cold. A problem a lot of people have. They want to keep everything, and a lot of them get starved out, not without proper nourishment.
Yeah.
Let's see. Shady Acre Homestead said they agree with the term bunny. Never use it. Always use kits and rabbits. Ray said, I have some friends that I bought my New Zealands from on Craigslist, and they showed nationally. Not everyone on Craigslist is selling much. He just got, it's just hard to discern who is who.
Yeah. And that's the danger of Craigslist. And that's why we've talked a lot about, you know, Ray, you've been doing it for a while, right? And I've been doing it for a while. So if we walk into a Craigslist seller, we pretty much can get a pretty good idea what we're looking at. The problem that we're getting into is so many new people go in and they buy Craigslist rabbits and they're getting junk and they don't know any better. I mean, yeah, there are some show breeders selling on Craigslist, but man, it's few and far between.
Yeah. Oops, lost my screen. Urban Interface Living asks if the fires are all out.
I think so. I haven't heard anything about.
You know, in Oregon, I think mostly, and I stopped watching because our skies cleared up and we could breathe. And I honestly, we probably haven't watched anything in 2 weeks about the fires. We've just done so many other things. I would bet there are still some in Northern California, and Ray might be able to jump in and speak to that since he's down that way. Our skies have been pretty darn clear. It's cleared up very nicely. We've had some very good rainstorms come through that have really significantly taken everything out of the air thanks to the rain. And it stayed cool enough that everything's kind of dropped down. It's not getting these big influxes of 80 and 90 degrees in the day, and then it cools off to 50 at night, and it gets these huge pushes. So I would say yes up here, but who knows? They're probably still raging in Northern California. Seems like there's just plenty all over the place. I know we got downgraded from extreme fire danger to high fire danger, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's pretty good. I mean, we had some friends that came down last weekend.
Yeah.
And they had come down previously. They wanted to come back, and they're interested in the area here. So we brought out the wood stove, not the wood stove, but fire pit. We set it out in the middle of the driveway with some water. And we had s'mores and had a good time doing that. But it was a lot more comfortable with a fire pit out there. And of course, you have the screen on, but you didn't feel like one small little ash or anything else was going to just set the world on fire. It wasn't going to be that. We
actually have spots of green right now where the grass got just enough water to green back up. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's but we're also, like we said, getting down into the 20s already at night. I think next week we've got a whole bunch of days where the high is going to be 40. So kind of cooling off.
Yep. That's it.
Okay. Well, good. Apparently, you can ask questions if you want because Kanan's phone is working. So that's something.
Yeah, it's trying at least. So
Yeah, so that's kind of the big stuff. That's what we've been talking about this week is just kind of just getting a little aggravated with some of the not so okay things that we've seen online and trying to get ready for winter. So Kanan's going to try and go on a big road rally with the Corvette next week.
and I don't even know that anybody knew I bought a Corvette because we kind of lost
Oh yeah.
everything. So
yeah.
so I'll tell the story for those that probably didn't get any of it last
Don't
time.
be long-winded. Nobody wants to hear
All
about
right.
your cars.
Okay, so so anyway, Nikki ended up selling some Americans to Michael, who's from Utah. Michael wanted to meet in Lakeview, which is about an hour and a half east of here, and it helped cut out about 3.5 hours of drive time.
Yep.
So we decided to do that on a Monday. On Saturday, a guy contacted me for buying one of my Porsches. He was stuck there, needed a used car to get home to outside of Portland, which is about an 8-hour road trip. Couldn't get a used car to dealership, couldn't get a U-Haul to drive one way, nor could he get a rental. So his next best thought was he found a car on Craigslist, which was my Porsche, and I said I would deliver it within 4 hours. So we worked out a deal. I sold one of my Porsches that day. And again, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to Michael very much. It just happened to be that he wanted rabbits. I had a Porsche. It just didn't work out. I couldn't make it work to trade rabbits and Porsches. So anyway, I sold the Porsche. We got home later that day. I sold my other Porsche, which I had bought for parts for the other one. So that was done. So that means 3 cars had left this year, and I went out and bought a 2004 Corvette that I had on, and it's a Batman theme, so it's very.
So I approve.
So out of all the ones I liked in the price range that we were able to do it because I sold all this other stuff, Nikki said go for the Batman car. So I went to Portland a few days later.
Well, you kept looking at red and black. Nothing says midlife crisis like red or black.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
This one's black, but it has blue flames.
Yeah, it's black with blue flames and a bunch of blue stuff and Batman everything, and so we've
very cool.
So it's very different, very cool. It's very love or hate with most people in the Corvette world. Some love it, some think it's horrible and ridiculous.
If anybody wants to see it, over on Basin Motorsports, his YouTube channel, he does have a rollout of it where he rolls it out of the garage and shows you all of it. So it's a pretty cool car. We've been excited about it. We've taken one trip in it. He's driven it once.
It sits so low, we actually have to go do a lot of road work. It hit about everything underneath that car on the way out because we drive Suburbans most of the day with 12 inches of clearance.
Yeah, you don't notice how bad the road is until you try and drive a Corvette down 3/4 of a mile of Forest Service road. So some road work coming in our future.
Yeah.
We knew some of it needed to be done. The big thing is our neighbor who was growing hemp. They've been moving out. They've been moving. They only come for the summer, so they've been moving all their stuff out. And while they do okay on the road the rest of the year, when they are moving out, they are flying like way faster than they should be. Cut a bunch of grooves, kicked a bunch of rocks, and now they're gone. So now I get the joy of going and regrading the road to fix it to keep it passable for us, which, again, some people just aren't good neighbors. It's just kind of the way it works. But yeah, so we got to do that so that he can go on his road rally. So we're trying to get him ready for that. Firewood, garden stuff. Believe it or not, we've been all the way down to 20 now? Didn't we make it down to 20 the other day?
Yeah, it was really cold.
And I still have bell peppers in the garden. They are probably sweating to death most of the time under like 4 and 5 layers of frost blankets, but I am keeping them alive. I moved some of them into the house, and I will probably dig the rest of these this week because it's just not going to work for very much longer. But yeah, we've still got some garden. the kale, the collard greens, the cabbage, the broccoli, they don't care. We're still covering those at night too. We got a frost last night, so no more garden here.
Yeah.
We almost never really got a frost. We went straight to the mother of all freezes. So
Yep.
we went from like kissing at 35 to boom, it was like 26, 28, something like that. So
Michael said the rabbits are all doing well and great. Thank you. Would you guys not try to be in part of the show
cats,
today?
dogs, all of it.
Michael said, yeah, the rabbits are doing great, all well and healthy.
All good. That's very good. Yeah, I sent a pair of blues down to California here recently, so I've now sent 9 Americans out in the last month. So good stuff there. I did show some, which I hadn't done in a while. Very, very frustrating. And I should probably do a video talking about some of this. So we're having some problems in the American breed where, and I've mentioned this before, where a lot of people are crossing New Zealand's in to try and improve that back hindquarter. And I tend to think that's a shortcut, that they're just not culling hard enough. But what is happening is we're starting to get these shorter bodies and these shorter ears that aren't right. So I took 2. I'm trying to remember. I took 2 out of my lines and 3 out of these California lines I brought in. One of them is of the California lines, but she's a pretty nice doe. You can really see the American in her. But interestingly enough, the Oregon judge, I had 3 judges that weekend. The Oregon judge loved my stuff and said, this is what Americans are supposed to look like. 2 of these girls were actually sisters to the white buck that Michael bought from me, who was going to be my keeper, and I went ahead and let him go. But good length, good depth, looks like Americans. The 2 judges from California picked the shortest bodied, shorter eared rabbits and then complained about them. It was the weirdest thing. They put the actual American typed rabbits in 4th and 5th, then looked at these short bodied ones, went on and on about how nice the hindquarters are on them, but then turned right around and said, well, they're too short a body, their head is wrong and their ears are wrong. And I went,
but that's what they chose to win.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Yeah.
But this is what's coming out of California right now. So, I took all this time and brought these California rabbits in, and right now if I can't breed them in to fix them, they're going to go. Because so far, my first couple litters out of them, not crazy about them at all. I'm still getting the fairly good growth rates. Still got good color. I did get some weird color out of the one group. I got a steal and stuff that I shouldn't have gotten. But overall, they're not New Zealand short. They're not American long. They're somewhere in between. And I personally, especially on an intermediate American, 6 months, I want to lay my entire hand on those shoulders before the rise starts. I want nice, long, supposed to be a mandolin. These 2 does that the California breeders love, or the California judges loved, you can get 3. So that's a good 2.5, overall about 2.5 inches short. So drastically short. We're also still fighting the fact that a lot of these judges are wanting the high point over the back end, over the hip, which is a New Zealand thing. Our standard for the Americans actually wants the high point slightly forward. Otherwise, they tend to deep dive off the back end. So, hadn't shown them in a while. Not sure that I'm going to show them again for a while, until maybe this silly, ridiculous cross of New Zealand into it fad is over. Because I'm not real pleased with it at all. But the one judge that I respect a lot, he's helped me with a lot of my different breeds over the years. And, he sat me down and said, you're absolutely on the right track. So we're going to keep doing what I know, what I read my standard to know is correct. And, Yeah, I think you kind of get into a situation of, do you want to win or do you want to do it right? And of course, I'm not so worried about the win that I'm willing to do the wrong thing. So,
Shady Acre Homestead asks, what are the requirements to be a judge, and do they have to have experience to get there?
so to be a judge, you have to go through and you have to be a ARBA register first. So at least that's my understanding. That was always the rule, and I think it still is. You have to be a register first, and then you go through and you become a judge. The judging, so to become a register, you have to fill out the paperwork, you have to do the test, and you're tested on your rabbit knowledge, and then you have to work with a judge to do what's called assist. So basically, you assist the judge at judging, and then they sign off on your stuff. Judging is pretty much the same way. Um, there's a big test. You do a bunch of assists. I can't remember how many hours worth of stuff it is. It's a lot though. And then once all that's done, I think there's another final test, and then like every 2 years, I think they have to be tested again. What you run into though, and why we have so many problems is where they don't always get exposed to rare breeds, right? So very seldom do I get a person going for a judge's license or a registrar's license that assists with Americans or even the Harlequins, or for that matter, a lot of times not even the Triantas, because we don't see them out here very often. So the judges are more used to New Zealand's, Californians, Satins, Netherland Dwarves, Holland Lops, things that you see a lot of. So it's not necessarily their own fault. It's just that they get it in their head one thing, and they don't stop to read the standard before they go up to judge. My favorite judges are always the ones that have the standard with them and will actually open to the page of the breed before they start, real quickly go over it, and then start going. So yeah, it comes down to that. The other thing is, up until I want to say it was like 10 years ago, judges could be specialty judges. And so what that meant is you had a lot of judges that, like Roger Hassenflung is one in Oregon, that all Roger really ever judged was like mini Rex and mini Satins and standard Satins. I shouldn't call them standard. Satins, the large Satins. So you could hold a specialty license in certain breeds. Well, ARBA eventually got away from that because it was a nightmare for show committees to hire judges in. Because you had to mix and match of what judges could do anything, what judges could only do some things. And maybe you really want to bring a judge in, but he can only do 4 breeds. Well, there's 50
2 or 3 or something like that, yeah.
Well, actually, officially, all the way in the standard is like 50, but then there's like 5 or 6 other ones that have CODs, so they can be shown. So it's what happened to those judges is most of them took the test, they studied enough to take the test, they passed it, became general judges, but they're really not very good at some of these. I know of 3 former specialty judges that I just die inside a little bit when I see that they're judging my breed, because I know they only really judge certain things, and my breeds don't conform to any of that. I have 3 of the strangest breeds in ARBA. So Triantas, for example, are a compact breed, but they don't pose like the other compact breeds. We're supposed to be short and cobbied and look like a little red brick. So they're allowed to have their head sit up, and you don't smash them together quite as much. The Harlequins are marked, so the majority of the points is on a marking standard that a lot of judges really don't understand. And then you get into the Americans, and they are a mandolin type, and there's very few mandolin type breeds. The only ones you ever really see is because you almost the Flemish Giant, which is judged entirely different, and the English Lop, which a third of its points is in the ears alone. So it's very judges are people, and they go with what they know. So if you see what I feel like happens a lot of times in the Americans in particular is they judge us from the shoulder back because that whole shoulder long-eared thing just doesn't make sense. So they just start where the rise goes and judges from there. And because that's what they know. They understand how to judge in New Zealand, so that's what they judge us on.
So Ray asked if you're still going to convention in Louisville.
I'm not. I'm not going to convention. Cat beating up the collie. Um, and she got her good too. Not going to convention. The only girlfriend of mine that could make it. Everybody else kind of fell off due to financial concerns. So basically, we were left with two of us, and couldn't split the bill down enough to make it really possible to go, which is a bummer. I wanted to go.
But there was other stuff other than financial. It was like, if you're gonna drive, could you had gas to get back because they're talking gas shortages? Would you have food on the way there and back because they're talking food shortages?
Yeah.
RHD, there's cases all across the whole spectrum of where you're driving
Yeah,
from.
there was just a new case in Minnesota that knocked out a whole bunch of breeders. And then whether you're a big believer in COVID or not, I mean, whether you think it's the flu or the plague, there's still a risk of getting it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get sick. So you add all that in, and then the money end of things, I really couldn't do it. It was a bummer. Two of my three main breeds have really tragically bad numbers. So the Americans have like 22 in open adult and like 21 in youth. Harlequins, we had like 57 in adult open and 10 in youth. The Triantas, and I'm so bummed, I would have liked to have been there. The Triantas have like 173 just in open alone. So it would have been a really nice showing. And then, of course, the Hollisers, the blue Hollisers that I am really looking at getting next fall, if the world holds together that long. This is their first presentation and first exhibition, and I thought they said there's like 50 or 60 of them going. So I was really excited to go look, but overall numbers are down. Usually when you see a Midwest or an East Coast convention, you see 20,000 plus entries, and right now I saw that they're barely at 15. Only one breed, wasn't it just the mini Rex that cracked over 1,000?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there was one breed out of 50 that actually cracked 1,000 entries, and that's really unusual. Usually you get, it's not unusual for French Lops and all the rest of them to crack 1,000, and they didn't. So
yeah, I mean, you had to exclude really anybody from outside the U.S. can't come over. I mean, Canada, I don't think can go over the border.
the Canadians couldn't make it. One of my board of directors on the Harlequin Club couldn't even come because of COVID restrictions, travel restrictions. So the Canadians couldn't come. There were pockets of California that couldn't register because of RHD. There was a new case in Mississippi recently enough that they're not able to come. And then just a week or so ago, we had a case in Minnesota, which knocked out a good portion of my breeders in the upper Midwest. And super, super bummed. I mean, we had, I think, 6 or 7 breeders impacted that had planned to go. So I know why our numbers were down. Yeah, super, super big deal. But yeah, a lot of people got bumped out. So numbers are down. We have a certain percentage of elderly folks that show in rabbits, or older folks that weren't comfortable going with the whole COVID thing either. Mm-hmm. So hoping for better things in Reno next fall. That's where I'm going to put my...
Spring and fall, yeah.
Well, convention is Reno next fall. And then, of course, West Coast Classic is supposed to be back in Reno in April. So I plan to be at both of those. Probably with all 3 of my breeds. Maybe not the Triantas in the spring, because there's just not a whole lot of breeders. But for sure, I will have Harleys and Americans at both. Gonna slow down my showing a whole lot this next year. One, I'm getting to be that weird hermit in the valley that doesn't want to go anywhere. But just seeing a lot of things on show tables and in the breeding community that I'm not crazy about. So I'm going to step myself back, focus on my own program for a while, and, do my own thing. That's the nice thing about having an ARBA standard is I know what I'm breeding for. So I don't need judges to tell me what I'm necessarily doing. It's nice to have that extra 2 cents just because you tend to get barn blind after a while and not see your own flaws. But I have a standard to breed to, and that's what I'm going to spend my time and my focus on. You would think this is his dog, and I swear it's mine. She just likes to bully him more. She knows Mama's talking, so she's like, I'll just come over here and bite and lick Dad.
So Marin said that RHD just showed up in Alberta a month ago.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's I don't know. They've finally gotten a vaccine that they're working on here in the States, and people are real excited about that. And I don't know. I won't vaccinate. I'm just not gonna do that.
Well, go get them. No, go out there and go get them.
Hush. I'm not big on the whole vaccination thing. For one thing, it's not really geared for us breeders. It's hugely expensive for breeders to be trying to vaccinate. Yeah, for meat rabbits, it makes no sense. And it's interesting because I looked this up a while back, and there was no study done on meat withdrawal. And now all of a sudden they've come out here in the last month and said, oh no, there's no withdrawal time necessary for meat. And I just think, okay, well, I looked this up from the companies that make it when all of this really got going again earlier this year, and could find no study on record. So I don't know if I buy it. That's just me. But yeah, why would you vaccinate something you're going to eat?
Try it. See what happens. Let's see what happens.
Well, yeah, when that extra leg grows out, or maybe I'll grow bunny ears. I don't know. I'm not interested.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. No.
Imagine the hearing capability of that, huh?
Maybe I could finally wear some earrings. But yeah, I'm not going to vaccinate. I'm not really interested in it. If my herd gets obliterated, I will sanitize, wait a year, and start again. I mean, it's just kind of the way it works. Marin
just said, agreed on it makes no sense for meat rabbits, and Ray said now they have the vaccine in the U.S. They are stopping foreign vaccines from coming in.
Yeah, they are working on that. The thing that I'm bothered by in that is for the same reason that I'm bothered by the haste of the COVID vaccine, and I don't care what anybody's thought on it is. This domestic vaccine, literally nobody was working on a domestic RHDV2 or RHE vaccine even 6 months ago. Nobody was working on it. So the idea that we have suddenly jumped over, got a vaccine, and think it's going to be okay, there's just not enough study for me. And I have a lot of time and money invested in my herd. They don't have any idea of what the cost on it's going to be yet. So I'm not real interested. I'm just not. I'll take my chances. I know that's, I think you're taking your chances either way. If you're getting the vaccine, not getting the vaccine, that's fine. Do your thing. But I don't know. I've bred long enough now. At first, my first impulse was, oh my God, I've worked so hard on these lines. I'd hate to lose them. On the other hand, I feel like I've spread the love enough that if I got obliterated out tomorrow, if we lost everything, I feel like there's some really good people out there that have my lines, and I could get some stuff back, and I'd rebuild. I'd start over, maybe with a whole fresh attitude and outlook, maybe not make so many mistakes. And it's not fun to think about, but it's like anything.
The reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, way too expensive. There's no way I could afford, even as diminished as our herd is right now, we still have over 70 breeders. There's no way I could afford that. There's just no way. And it's such an ongoing process. It's a vaccine, and then it's a booster, and then it's every year is what they say. And I don't know. That's a little more than I'm willing to do. They have been having vaccine clinics at all the shows that I've been going to, and people line up, and what I see happening is sometimes people are getting stuff vaccinated that really ought to be culled. And then once they've paid the money to vaccinate it, then they don't want to cull it because they're like, oh, well, I've already got all this money into it. So it's going to be interesting to see how badly that screws up some of people's breeding programs. Fear of wasting the money. So going back real quickly to convention, one number that we were really shocked by, and everybody keeps contacting me about silver fox because they want to do silver fox. They're so rare, and I keep saying to people, they're not as rare as you think. What was it? 253 entries?
Something like that, yeah.
Huge number. Silver fox entries are like 5 times my breed, the Harlequins, and the Harlequins aren't a rare breed. So, if you're thinking about going into silver fox, just because they're not in your area, I would not expect silver fox to be on the rare breed list for a whole lot longer.
Yep.
I thought they were down to like 8 already. I would not be surprised at all if the next list or the list after they are not classified a rare breed anymore. Lots of people breed them. And like I had said before on another video or live stream, just because there are no breeders and no registered rabbits in your area and they're not showing them doesn't mean there's not a ton of people breeding them. We have a good dozen breeders in Oregon and most of them aren't showing. So, and that is part of how they determine what's a rare breed and what's not, is based on registration, convention, and national numbers. So if those rabbits are never seeing a show table and the breeders aren't ARBA members or aren't registering their herd, they don't count. So that doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means they're not getting included in the counts. The silver fox are one of the few rare breeds that I don't really think are as rare as people think they are, especially here lately.
Shadeacre Homestead said they have 1 pair of the silver fox and they're getting a 2nd pair tomorrow.
They're everywhere. They really are. To give you an idea how rare these things are supposed to be, the last 2 shows that I went to had 13 and 17. My last 2 shows with my Harlequins had 7, and the other show I think we had 13. So both shows we were outclassed by a rare breed. In fact, Flemish Giant are nowhere close to a rare breed, and there were more silver fox than.
What's your phone doing?
It's turning the color down.
Oh,
because it's getting dark.
Oh.
But yeah, Flemish are not exactly rare, but we've had very few of them at the last 2 shows, and silver fox have outpaced them. So there are a lot more silver fox out there than most people think. Some of the rare breeds I'd really like to see, and we don't have them locally, but cinnamons, palominos, I'd like to get my hands on some of those. I say that, and he's always like, no more breeds. No more breeds. But
because it's all about time management.
I know, I don't have time
Having
now.
more doesn't mean you have more time.
Well, that's true.
So,
and I only have the cages I have. I'm not putting in anymore. In fact, I'm trying to get in less. So
yeah,
there's that.
I know.
All right, guys. Well, it's getting dark.
It's getting cold. I'm starting to get chilly.
Oh, he's always cold.
I hate being cold.
But we have got to get some chores done before it gets any darker. That
right.
is for sure. So, hopefully, I mean, we got good interaction, so I'm guessing this worked. Yeah. So maybe we'll try again next week. I don't know if we'll shoot for Wednesday or Thursday. Seems like on Wednesdays now, it's so full that you can't get a connection at all. So, I don't know. Maybe we left Mondays because we couldn't get on. We may have to leave Wednesdays.
Maybe.
It seems like no one live streams on Tuesday, Thursdays. So maybe we'll try and slip in and take Thursdays until everybody else decides to take Thursday. So.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's it for us. And as usual, we are on Facebook, email, Instagram. Leave us a comment if you have one, have a question, that kind of thing. I am mostly caught up. It's only about a 3-day lag time right now, which for me is really, really good.
Ray says, came across great tonight. See you next week.
So. Oh, good. All right, everybody. See you then. Happy homesteading, and we'll see you next time. Oh, you missed it. There you go.